We are the one, the light in the dark. One heart, one world, one spark. We are the one, together we rise. One dream, one voice, one sky.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Empowered Across the World. And this is our podcast. And I have my podcast host with me today. I have Raksha from Miami. I have Megan from South Africa. I have Renata from Brazil, now living in Oregon. And I have Jackie, who is in Arizona. However, she's everywhere, guys. And her heart is in Africa. So is mine. I'm Carol Witt, and I'm the founder and director for YEA Youth Empowerment Program, and I am global. And we have an amazing guest today, somebody I've known for quite some time, and she's going to share her story and inspire all of us. And Star, come share.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very excited about sharing my story. And as I mentioned, taking a moment to look back and reflect on your life was an interesting exercise for me. It's not something I'd done in a while, and it was really, really fascinating for myself to kind of go back and remember parts of my life that I just hadn't thought about in a long time. So I was born in New York City, and I was born in 1950, and I have a twin sister, and we're 10 minutes apart. And she and I grew up in New York City with our parents who, my father worked for CBS television. My mother was an actress. And so we grew up loving the arts. I was lucky enough to go to um, some of you may have know who Leonard Bernstein is, at Lincoln Center, the famous conductor. So I grew up going to Lincoln Center and seeing Broadway plays and being exposed to music and theater and dance. And I started taking dance classes at around age 5, and I still dance today. And if you'd asked me what I thought I would be doing, it would have been dancing or teaching or performing. And I did a lot of that. But as my story unfolds, you'll see how things change. You know, God has other plans for you while you're making your own plans. That's my life. So, and we moved to Connecticut at around age 12. I say we, my twin sister and I. And um, I really, you would have thought that I might have missed the city, but I've always loved nature, and I've always felt close to the divine through nature. So little did I know that Connecticut is not exactly super rural. It was total suburbia. But to me, as a kid growing up in New York City, I was able to play outside and go for hikes and walks and get a dog. And so it did give me a lifelong love of nature and connection to nature, which is really important to me. My parents divorced when I was about 15. And my mom remarried, and we left Connecticut and moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, I wasn't real thrilled about that. And I felt like we'd gone back in time. It was a huge culture shock. There's a very, very big difference in the 1960s between suburbia, New York, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It felt like somehow we had lost 50 years, and I was far more aware of segregation in the high schools. Not really, but really. Okay. So I said I would never live in Florida, which is pretty funny since I do and have for years. But as soon as I could, um, and during high school, I danced in a civic ballet and did a lot of dancing and performing. And but I wanted to get out of Florida as soon as I could, and I left Fort Lauderdale and only applied to colleges in the Northeast. And I went to Boston Conservatory of Music, where I studied dance again, very, very seriously, and danced a little bit with the Boston Ballet and had wonderful teachers. And again, I thought I was on a track of doing performing arts. And it was a big part of my life. And I graduated in 72 with a degree in performing arts and psychology. And I was also very interested in anthropology because I loved studying about people and why people, how cultures evolved. And so that was my interest. But after I graduated, I was lucky enough to travel around. I spent 3 months with my best girlfriend, and we was like, I'm sure this is hard to relate to, but if anybody remembers the book Europe on $5 a day, which is really funny because you couldn't get coffee for $5 a day now. But we had backpacks. I didn't even bring a dress. I had hiking boots, and we stayed in youth hostels and hitchhiked. And you know, this was the '70s, remember? And so we were free flying, and knocked on people's doors and said, "Can we sleep in your barn?" I mean, we I was we had a wonderful time, and it was eye-opening, to travel through Europe. We went to England and Scotland and France and Italy and got to Greece, and I just fell in love with a lot of these countries and the culture. Came home very broke. I'd spent all my graduation money, traveling, and went back to Fort Lauderdale, and that's where I met my first husband, who was 7 years older than I was at the time. And his name is Jerry Bradbury, and I kept the name Bradbury because we have two sons together. And we'll fast forward 13 years when I realized my marriage was falling apart. We had moved by then from Fort Lauderdale to Longboat Key, Sarasota, where I worked in various retail jobs and had my first son. And then we moved to Gainesville, where my second son, Jake, was born. And at that point, my working life had been um, retail jobs around teaching dance somewhere and giving classes somewhere and starting dance companies. And then when I realized, oh my gosh, I am a mom with two kids, and I better figure out pretty darn fast how I'm going to support myself and my two sons, because my husband sort of split and wasn't too concerned. So I figured, gosh, I really like prayed about this, and I'm a person of tremendous faith, and I have never been disappointed in that faith. And I also learned through um, Landmark, and I have a little poster. It's a little right here. Guess what is on there? It says, "Create what you choose next." So I had started to learn at about this point in my life, like I better create something different for myself. And I believed that I could. I started getting exposed to uh, universal laws of asking the universe. I did a collage. I mean, I had nothing. I mean, and I knew my marriage was on the rocks. And so I built a collage of everything I wanted to draw to me, being able to be comfortable financially and have a car and within 3 months of doing this collage, I walked into an employment agency back when they had them. This was before everything was online. And they basically said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I kind of said, "I'm not really sure, but I can tell you what I'm good at. And I'm good at communicating with people, and I can talk to anybody. And I think that's from growing up in New York in a very diverse culture. And I love people and I want to help people." And they said, "Well, how about a job here?" And I said, "Well, what do I have to do?" First of all, I just wanted Monday through Friday, not retail mall hours, which I'd done, working weekends and holidays. And I wanted to have some time with my children. And so they pretty much, they could have told me I would do anything. Was it Monday through Friday? I'll take it. So within a month of that job, I was managing two offices. And it basically took being able to listen to people and find out what they wanted in their lives for their own success in the world of building a career. And what I can tell you is that I really, really learned some incredibly important things on that job. One, it was, I mean, when I tell you how much stress I was under, so I did take the job. It was what was called a draw against commission. Does anybody know what that means? A draw against commission means they paid me $200 a week. And at the end of the month, they looked at all the commissions I made, which was a percentage of the first week's salary for the person I found a job for. And I had to pay them back the draw, that 246, $800. And then I got what was left over. And I was terrified. I mean, I was like, I need to pay my bills and put food on the table. I mean, I'm like, is this going to work or not? But again, I really felt like this door had been opened and I stepped in. And I learned one of the most important lessons of my life. And here it is. If you want to see direct results of your effort in your paycheck, take a job with commission. I had worked for a long, long time, and I worked hard. I'm a hard worker. It's just my nature. Never made a difference in my salary or my hourly wage. And when I realized that I could work hard and actually see some results through my efforts through commission, I never took another job again that didn't have commission. I also learned the power of listening to people, finding out what they wanted, and trying to help them get what they wanted by being able to communicate to an employer, convincing them to interview this person. I also learned that employers will hire people who are enthusiastic and excited about taking the job over someone who has experience in the job but is a know-it-all and isn't fun to work with or isn't open to new ideas. I went, huh, okay, I need to learn from that for myself. And so I always told people never take a job that you can't. There's two reasons to take a job. And I tell this to people all the time. It's the job you want, or it's going to help you get the job you want. That's it. There's no other reason. And you should never, especially when I'm counseling young people who think jobs are throwaway jobs. I'll just do this for a year while I'm, even in college. Every job counts, and every job should be a job you are learning from and building skills from, and a job that you can build on. And don't ever take a job that you can't be on for a minimum of a year. No employer will look at that experience and think it's worth anything if you haven't been on that job for a year, preferably 2 years. And if they see a resume, even today, where it's job, 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 and they say, well, that wasn't a serious job. I've interviewed hundreds and hired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And when people start saying that to me, I go, huh, they're off my list. It wasn't a serious job. Well, what was it? It was serious to someone who was paying you. So that I learned some very, very important things about working with people, communicating with people, and understanding the importance of commission. I stayed on that job for 10 years, and then I got completely burnt out. By that time, I had 3 offices, and I really saw I needed a change. And you'd think that running an employment agency would be easy for me to just change jobs, but it wasn't. I had to do a whole nother mental reinvention. And that's why I said that this was about, reinventing yourself at any age. So I thought, okay, time to reinvent myself. What am I going to do? So I actually went to some workshop. It might have been Landmark. And I mean, at the end of that workshop, I went, okay, I need to change my mental paradigm about what I want. So I wrote a list of everything I wanted that was the perfect job, and began to create what I choose next.
Mhm.
And the first job that I took was my pathway into senior living. I was a community liaison marketing person, and all my work in the employment agency business, networking with the Chamber of Commerce and business leaders, taught me the power of networking, and that got me my next job. because I knew tons and tons of people in the community through networking, and they didn't care that I hadn't worked for a doctor or hadn't worked in assisted living or hadn't worked in senior living. And so I talked them into hiring me, basically. I was so enthusiastic. And that's what I learned, the power of genuine, authentic enthusiasm when you're going into a new field with somebody new or that you don't have experience in. So basically, I took my first job in senior living. I was a community relations liaison. They never want to call you a salesperson. Uh, and that was my first job. And then my next job was absolutely critical. I became the administrative director and marketing director for the first assisted living facility ever built in Gainesville. It was a true startup. It wasn't even built. And I got hired in that position, and learned a lot about the corporate world and healthcare, the pros and cons. We could talk a long time about that. And when we opened, I sat for the test in Florida as a healthcare administrator in assisted living and passed that test. And then I had the ability to either stay in administration or focus on marketing. And for a while, I did both. That was a pretty challenging time in my life. Um, but I also felt like it was time to move up again. And the University of Florida decided to build what's called a life care community in Gainesville, Oak Hammock at the University of Florida. And I was the first person hired in that position. At first I thought they should hire me as the director, but they didn't. And I said, that's okay. I want, again, take a job. It's going to get you the job you want. And within 4 years, I was the director of marketing for one of the top life care communities in the United States, still is, connected with the University of Florida here in Gainesville. I learned about setting goals for an entire team, reaching those goals, communicating, advertising, and marketing. I retired from that job at 68 and reinvented myself again. This was 6 years ago. I started my own consulting business so I could continue to work part-time. And because I really felt like I had all this information and knowledge to share with people. And I wasn't ready to just say, okay, that's it. I think I don't know, go eat bonbons. That's just not me. So I have a lot of friends who've done that in retirement, and they're like, why are you still working? Because I choose to, and I want to, and I love to help people. So I started my consulting business, and then COVID hit, and I decided, it's time for me to go back to finishing my blankety blank book. By that point, I had been trying to write this friggin' book for so many years. And I was like, I have no more excuses. You're stuck at home. So I made a goal for myself. I'm going to finish the book. I'm going to do everything I can to find an agent. And if I can't, then I'll self-publish. But I'm really, really going to try. Well, I took a class, an online class on how to write a book proposal, which is actually very specific. And I had never done it and didn't know what I was doing. And the book proposals I had been doing weren't working. So I took this class with this wonderful person. She was an agent, and she said, I think there's a market for your book. She didn't take everybody on in this class, but she took me on and helped me sell my book. And I have to tell you that I really feel both divine guidance and how this book came to me. It downloaded in a vision, and I'm not exaggerating. I took a landmark class. I woke up and I don't chronicle my dreams. I don't have a diary. I don't get up and write. I woke up and I sat up, and it's like this book just went boom and I went, I think I'm supposed to write a book. And I actually got up and wrote the outline, even though it's changed a million times. And that was the beginning of this book. But ladies, 10 years. And during those 10 years, my parents died, and I had two sets. An older sister died, lots of loss. And I just couldn't write. I'd have to stop, but it just wouldn't let go of me. And this I wrote this book to help people make educated and informed decisions as they deal with their own crises or with their parents, because it's complicated. Healthcare is complicated, especially in the United States, probably anywhere. I don't think it's vastly different. I don't know. And so it's available on all major book sites. I just checked the numbers on Amazon, and I think um, my TikTok video propelled it forward in the last few days. But it's also in an audio version. And uh, I wanted to share a couple of things because some people say, well, gosh, you spent so many years dancing, and I still do dance aerobics, and I don't really do ballet anymore or modern. I've had both hips replaced. I still dance. And I think it's kept me aging gracefully, as I like to say, since I'm 74. And when people say, what did you learn from dance that you could apply to your life? And I thought about it. Number one, being a team player. When you're in a dance performance or a dance company and you dance in the core, um, you have to be a team player, or otherwise you're going to really screw up on stage. I mean, and what I learned is that um, it's okay to make mistakes. If you literally fall down on the stage, every dancer is taught you get back up as fast as you can and get back in to whatever, is happening on stage. So you learn, okay, it's not the end of the world. If you fall down, you get up, you do the best you can, you keep moving forward. I also learned not to compare myself to everybody. There's always a better dancer than you and somebody worse than you, and you're not going to get every part. And you better decide why what are you doing this for anyway? I think it taught me to think creatively. I also choreographed for years. And so I think it's a powerful tool to think creatively and think differently about problems and approach them from a more creative perspective than a linear, logical one sometimes. And never let the fear of failure or your lack of experience stop you from achieving your goals. I've reinvented myself over and over again into careers I never ever thought I would I would be. And I can tell you that in my last position, I was making six figures, and I had a base salary that was what most people make in a year, and then had commission on top of that. So I told you I never took another job that didn't have commission because I saw the power of working hard and succeeding directly reflected in what I earned. And I was very specific about what my goals were. And the more specific you are, the better. When I say create what you choose next, I mean that literally. That is not a euphemism. And I completely believe that you can, in fact, create the life you want through the power of your focus and asking for divine guidance, and the doors will open. I mean, I can't tell you how often I feel still to this day how that has been true for me.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Absolutely a beautiful story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This will inspire so many Star. That is why I was like, we've got to find a date for you. She does a lot of traveling, guys. So we were working hard to find this date for her. So
I wasn't sure, I said, Carol, do you really think, I watched some videos and saw some of what all of you are doing, but everyone that I've met that I'm looking at, you're all trying to make a difference in someone else's. And I think that's, I teach a class in the 5 pillars of aging successfully. And the fifth pillar is a passion and a commitment to paying it forward. And if you don't have that as you get older and older and older, you don't age well. You start pulling away from life, and
yeah.
and your world gets smaller and smaller. But I have role models of women in their 90s still going full out, and I'm not exaggerating. Some of them could work me under the table. And so I have wonderful role models of people never saying, oh, my life is over. Never saying, I can't make a difference. I'm too old. That's just not true. I don't believe that at all.
Beautiful. All right. So, Jackie, we have our first question. Go ahead, Jackie.
You're such an inspiration. I just love it. And it's such a different background. I'd love to watch you in ballet. It would be so delightful for me.
Ooh,
Anyhow, so what's the obvious is, well, first of all, I need to know the first four pillars before we go on.
I can, I got that right up here.
Yeah,
Okay. You want me to tell you now?
yeah. And then I'll
Okay.
do the second part of my question. Go ahead.
Okay. So, pillar number one is where do you want to age? Lots of research shows
Mm,
that your ability to age well and successfully has to do with where you age. For example, are
absolutely.
you on a 10-acre farm, an hour from a hospital or a doctor or a city,
Hmm.
and you're a solo ager and you've lost your spouse and you're completely isolated and alone? Maybe not such a great place to age in place.
Good point.
Um, and so when people say that I want to age in place, they usually mean stay in their home. And statistically, I would say 90% of all people say, I'm just going to stay in my home, to which I say, that is a statement. That is not a plan. Just saying, I'm going to stay in my home. Well, there's a lot to do. If that's your plan, a whole step of questions I address in my book and that when I'm consulting with people to discuss whether or not the home they're currently in is actually going to help them maximize their independence and age well. And it might. It might. Where is that house? Is it one story? I'm leaving the house I'm in now next fall because it's 2.5 stories and there's no full bedroom or bathroom downstairs. Already told you I've had two hips replaced. Currently, I could run up and down the stairs, but I'm planning for my 90-year-old. And I don't want to be moving at 80 or 90 and waiting for a crisis.
Mm,
So where are you going to age?
mhm,
Okay.
And so, and number two, getting your medical documents in order, advanced directives. Number three, getting your financial documents in order, your will, your trust, your POA, power of attorney, all of those legal things, your insurance documents, and have them readily organized and understandable for the people that might be either caring for you or carrying out your wishes after you pass away. And number four is how are you going to pay for long-term care? Which is a big, big issue, and which was what kind of a little bit about what my TikTok was about, Carol,
mhm,
paying for long-term care. Um, the cost of long-term care is becoming prohibitive in the
mhm,
United States. And then number five, what is your passion and your legacy? And then
Beautiful.
some of the questions that I ask people is how strong are your support team? I mean, lots of people say, I don't have kids, or what the big question I ask, who can you count on to be on your support team personally and professionally?
mm.
Person, are your children willing, able, and capable? Willing, able, and capable to provide support to you in your as you age or in illness. That's
Wow.
a tall order. And a lot of people say, no, my kids are not willing, or they're not able, or they're hell no, they're not capable.
Yes.
Or, oh my
Very cool.
God, I can't imagine having that son taking care of me, but the other one might do okay.
Yeah, I hear all of that. Those are really
So that, I
great
mean, that's
points.
a lot of this stuff is in my book. And what is assisted living and who will they take and who will they not take? And why does it differ from skilled nursing? And what is it going to cost? And what kind of questions should you ask if you're trying to figure out if the facility is good or not? And what is a life care community? And is it worth the high cost? My background was all in running. I ran assisted living, memory care, and then I worked in this life care community for 18 years. And so my background is more from the industry of senior living and watching thousands of people, helping thousands of people, but watching literally thousands of people making various decisions and going, that was a great decision, or wow,
Mm,
man, bad decision.
Beautiful.
mm.
Beautiful. Okay, the second part of my question is what's your goal?
Oh, that is a good question. My goal is to get through this move this year. I'm probably going to put my consulting business on hold for a few months because we've been in this house 40 years. And, I always preach to people all the time that you have to downsize before you want to and before you think you should. By the time you think you should, it's a crisis.
Yeah.
So we're both super healthy. I want to make this move while my husband and I are healthy, able to make this move together. Now, my goal is I write my goals down every year, and I write them in the following categories: my spiritual goals, my family goals for my immediate family and my children, my material goals, and do I have any sort of travel goals? And so I generally kind of look and reflect on my life every year about what I want to move forward in those realms. Um, and I recently, my agent has started a speaker bureau, and I signed up for that speaker bureau. And so my goal is that I'll do less one-on-one consulting, which I love, and I'll probably go back to, and more speaking nationally, either on podcasts like this or and still have an impact on people's lives. So that's sort of my new, and that's of course related to my book, because I remind myself whenever I get like exhausted or do I say yes? I ask myself, it took me over 10 years to write this book. And I know I wrote the book not to make money. If it does, great. I haven't yet, but not entirely true, but mostly true. But I wrote this book to help people. And unless people know about it, it won't matter. And how am I going to tell people about it? Say yes to everything I possibly can. And I do.
Beautiful. So,
Mm.
Star, please make sure you put in the chat how we get your book,
Okay.
link to how we get your book, and
Okay.
can you show your book so that
I'll
people
show it again.
can
So it's
hear? Yeah, there you go.
successfully
Successfully navigating your parents' senior years. Wow.
critical information to maximize their independence. I have two principles in the book.
Mm.
And in the book, I have an imaginary family that we follow through the arcs and storyline so that you see what a family might do to actually look at these five pillars of aging successfully and look at these principles and then actually apply it. And principle number one is, what decisions can I make for myself or helping my aging parents that will maximize their independence for the longest possible time?
I love that.
And that as simple as that sounds, I can tell you that it's not that simple to apply. For example, if staying in your home is not going to maximize your independence, then you have to come to the conclusion, if that's true, then what do I want to do? It may not be aging in place in your home for all few of the reasons I mentioned. Okay. And then principle number two is I call just-in-time senior planning, which I refer to as uh, a principle that helps you sort of focus on for the next 3 to 5 years. Don't try to plan 10 years out. Like if your mom got a dementia diagnosis, there's no way you could plan for 10 years out and people go, oh my God, what am I going to do? And how am I going to pay for it? That just is a waste of your energy and a waste of your resources. Focus on the next immediate 3 to 5 years because things will change. And there's no point in trying to look much farther out than that. And your plan has to, but your plan has to be flexible. You've
Ah,
got to be willing to change that plan because curveballs happen.
beautiful. All right. We have another question. Raksha.
I love what Star's up to.
I know.
And like when I first started out, um, I started out because I had four deaths in my family within a span of 7 months.
Ooh,
And
ooh,
I saw the drama at the hospitals,
yes.
right? And it was like I was a stand that this shouldn't go on. But then I started thinking about it more and more, and I realized you mentioned, having your paperwork in place, having your medical directives in place, knowing what's going to happen with long term and stuff. And I realized that young people think they're invincible,
Yes, they do.
right? So anyone who's over the age of 18 should have those things in place,
Absolutely.
especially with all the traveling and the nomading people do nowadays.
Right.
You don't know. So that's why I kind of love what you're saying. And to be practical about it, because some places don't offer long-term care, or like in some countries and stuff, it's just not even a thought because a lot of people are in survival mode,
You know,
right?
you're
Um,
right.
so I'm like, besides speaking, which I know that you're already in an incubator with your agent to create that, what other ways are you reaching out to people? Because this is this is like one of those things that we're going back to basics before we had Social Security and stuff. It was a thing where people had joint families. We weren't as nuclear as we are now. Um, and people are, I think now, the younger generation is realizing the importance of living as a joint family and the benefits of it.
Mhm.
But for those that are still brainwashed to thinking that no, this is this and this is that, and let's keep everything separate. Well, there comes a time, you know how the kids are coming back to your parents after college because they can't afford to live
Yeah,
anywhere?
yes.
It's a give and take. How do you make them aware of that?
Mm. Well, you know,
That today you're coming home, but tomorrow you're going to have to take care of your parents.
I'm wondering, I'm wondering if we're going to see a shift in our culture, because of exactly what you're talking about. Although it's pretty hard to go back. Meaning, I'm a good example. I have three children, my two sons and my stepdaughter. I remarried. I had a whole paragraph in here. I remarried a wonderful man, Mitchell Jim. We put our families together. We've been married, gosh, 5 years. Um, and his daughter came to live with us full time. So I have a son in LA, Glendale, a daughter in Chicago, and my older son in Massachusetts. So I'm perfect example because guess what? I'm not moving to LA, Chicago, or
Exactly.
Massachusetts. And so, and I tell people when they say, I don't have any kids, and I say, don't worry, there's plenty of people who have kids like me and who they're not going to come home and take care of me. And that's okay. I
No.
actually don't expect that. So that means what decisions can I make now?
Mm,
And downsizing to a house with no stairs that I can age in is part of that 3 to 5 year plan, and maybe 10 years, because we're both so
Yeah.
healthy that we'll probably will live to 90. It's much safer to plan for that, especially as women, than not plan for that. And so I think that our culture is going to have to, and I'm going to start addressing this on TikTok, uh, because it's a huge, complex problem. We
Mhm.
don't have a solution.
mm,
The staffing issues are going to catch up with us in a huge way. That even if and in the TikTok video that went viral, I talk about the problems on a national cultural level. And I think my new goal, and Jackie, you asked my goal, I think is to I don't have the answers, but I do think I can bring attention to the bigger issues because so many people are clueless. Half the
It's
people I sit down in my consulting business say, well, Medicare pays for long-term care.
no,
No. Medicare pays for assisted living. No.
no.
Um, Home care isn't that expensive. Oh, yes, it is. And so my goal is to get people to realize this is what home care costs today.
mm.
Yeah.
And by the way, those of you in the States, write down Genworth cost of care survey. Genworth, Genworth, huge insurance company. They have a little calculator on their website. Well, first of all, you can put in your zip code and find out the cost for home care, home health care,
Wow.
assisted living, skilled nursing for any zip code in the United States. And it varies dramatically from state to state.
Oh, yes.
Show you the median cost. Then you can take your little cost calculator and go up to 2030, 2040, 2050, and see what those costs are going to be like if you're a young person trying to figure out how you might be paying for long-term care. And we have a big, big, big problem with this, the silver tsunami of this huge bubble of baby boomers that will need long-term care, combined with a lack of staffing, underpaying our healthcare workers that work in long-term care, um, uh, corporate greed, that's the short term for what I see happening, uh, and lack of planning in the United States for caring for our aging population. It's a big problem.
Wow.
I think we're going to have to invent a new model. I hesitate to use this word because it has so many connotations, but it's also a fast way of communicating to you where I think we should go. It's kind of like the Golden Girls, if that TV show,
Yes.
or a commune of older people who build tiny houses. I already have it in my head architecturally. Tiny house in a spoke, right? And in the center of that wheel is a central building, and you share the cost of a nurse or a home health aide.
Ooh.
Because now you understand home care agencies will not take on a job unless you commit to 3 to 4 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week.
Mhm.
Yes.
They won't, they won't, now maybe only need them for an hour or two, but they will not take the job. Most agencies refuse that job. And so if you collectively live together, you have your own house, but then there's a central kitchen and living area and socializing area and sharing of staff. And maybe somebody cooks meals for everybody and comes and checks on Mrs. Smith and Mr. Andrews and Sally over here and passes out meds and helps with bathing or dressing. We got to come up with a different model. Now, assisted living started that way and then became corporate and got so huge that it wasn't really effective anymore. But we're going to have to reinvent how we care for ourselves and our aging loved ones in a way that's financially sustainable. Because I tell you right now, what we have going is not
It's not
sustainable.
working.
Mm, absolutely. Okay, we need to wrap this up, and I want to bring Megan on and have her ask her question, and then we will complete.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Carol. And Star, thank you so much for sharing that with us, loving the philosophies and the pillars you shared with us, and definitely something on the practical side that we need to address this. It certainly is a worldwide issue, not strictly in the US. What my question was, are you offering any kind of mentorship in this space based on where you are currently after having written your book? I too have a few people that relatively young people wanting to get into that space and currently working in this space, but running into walls along the way. So I'd love to be able to connect those people to you and just share with them the story today, and then hopefully to be able to connect them with you and potentially see how you can exchange ideas around it.
I think that's going to how we're, as with almost any new idea, it has to reach a level of collective consciousness. And
Yes.
there's a lot of thought and people recognizing that these issues are serious and they're going to get worse as their population ages. So it is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I would love to brainstorm with other people who are looking at like what can we do to solve this.
Mm,
So one thing that I can say is my website, which I'll put in the chat, is www.starbradbury.com. It's pretty simple. STARBRADBURY.com. And all the podcasts I've been on are linked on that website. Well, not all of them. I've been on a lot. And I'm going to add Carol's, of course. But so that, and I write a blog. And so they can start reading my blogs, your friends, or look at some of the podcasts because they're all, most of them are oriented around the book. Uh, uh, and a few are like Carol's where, tell us more about your personal story. And then they can always email me, and we can begin some communication, because I know that there's a time difference and it's kind of hard to coordinate face to
Yes.
face, but we could always do some Zooms.
That,
And
yes.
as I said, I do consulting one-on-one with families all the time,
Yes.
to help people make plans to age successfully.
You
Wonderful.
absolutely
Thank you.
amazing once again. And I'm so glad that I fought for you to be on this podcast, my dear, and that we figured out a date for you that worked. And because I know you're getting ready for a trip, right?
Yes, my
Yeah.
husband grew up in
Hawaii,
Hawaii, and we're heading home to see his family. Yeah,
Hawaii, yes. So anyway, thank you so much. What an amazing, amazing guest you are.
thank you.
Thank you for what
Please
you
put your
do.
contact information
Yes,
in there.
Yes,
We're kind of
let me
stuck
do
please
here
that
make
without
sure
that.
that
right now before we
you put
forget.
everything in the chat for us, okay? So I can put it in the description, all right?
That would be amazing.
Guys, thank you so, so much for joining us for another episode of Women Empowered Across the World. Our podcast. Please, if you love these episodes, please subscribe to our channel. And also make comments. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference. And please share this with as many people as you can. And the last thing is this: if you would like to be a guest on our podcast, reach out to one of us. We are all on LinkedIn, all over the place. You can find us. Please reach out to us and let us know you'd like to be a guest. Just come share your story and inspire many. This is the platform to do it, for you to find your voice, share your story, and inspire many, 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 many people across the planet. Okay. Thank you again. And guys, please, let's thrive together. Bye, everyone.
We stand as one.